What's good, YouTube? It's Quintessential Q back with another Godfall video today. And today's video is going to be like an augmenting guide or what you should be looking for when augmenting. Because I feel like augmenting is something that people kind of mess up during their builds. So I wanted to put out a guide just to help you know what you should be looking for when augmenting things, like what augments to go for certain colors, yada yada yada. But before we get too in depth with that, if you like the content here, please drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel. I try to upload every other day. Sometimes it's every 2 days, but I try to get a couple of videos out for y'all for the week. As of right now, they're mainly Godfall videos, just because that's the main game that has my attention. But I also play things like Genshin Impact. I play Monster Hunter World, low key. Anthem 2.0 looking kinda nice, so we might be over there as well when that drops. I just do a myriad of content. I also do fighting game content like Smash Brothers, Dragon Ball Fighters that y'all will probably start seeing on the channel soon as well. Also follow me on Twitch. I stream pretty much every day over there at twitch.tv/quintessentialq. Link will be in the description below for that. Now, when it comes to augmenting, like I said, I think a lot of people get this messed up in their builds. And it mainly comes down to the red augments, right? Because the red augments are primarily your damage dealing augments. Because you have things like Surety, you have things like Carnage, you have things like right here, you got Foreboding Reach. And people, it's easy to get lost in the sauce when you are augmenting. But the augment that I feel like everybody falls for, and I call it the trap augment, because you put this augment in your build thinking you're getting all this damage, and guess what? You're not. And it's this augment right here, Sacred Flame. Adjacent augments grant additional 70% might. And also, that's another thing. People get messed up what it means when it says adjacent augments. Adjacent augments simply mean any augment that points to this augment. So adjacent in this case, adjacent augments mean all these augments on the outside, because all these augments on the outside point to this augment here in the middle. But let's say this green augment right here in the corner, in the bottom right corner, didn't point to this middle augment, then that wouldn't be an adjacent augment. Or even this one right here, just strictly on the right. Let's say this Godspeed augment didn't point to the middle augment. That wouldn't be an adjacent augment, even though technically it's right beside it. But if there's no line connecting these two augments, then it is not an adjacent augment. Now, that being said, a lot of people overvalue this augment and augments like it. There's a couple augments like these. I think there's one for might, there's one for spirit, and there's one for vitality. Out of all of them, the vitality one is probably the best one, just because that would give you more health, which increasing your health, more health, while an additive modifier works for health, because there's no real multiplicative modifiers for gaining more health, right? However, when it comes to spirit, or maybe not even spirit, I don't even think spirit has too many multiplicative modifiers as well. The reason why it's bad when it comes to might is because, due to might being the primary damage dealing augment, might actually has a lot of multiplicative modifiers, and increasing your might is additive. So things like increasing weak point damage or critical hit damage or rampage bonus damage, these are usually associated with might augment, and all those things are multiplicative modifiers. These are not additive modifiers like increasing your might. we'll go over to my stat sheet real quick. I have 316 might due to Sacred Flame. I have crit chance 51%, crit hit damage bonus 319%, and weak point damage bonus 189%, right? Critical hit bonus damage and weak point bonus damage are both, again, multiplicative modifiers. And actually, they stack on top of each other because if I hit a weak point and it's a crit, that both stacks on top of each other for even more damage. That's how you get like absurd damage numbers that you see in some builds, because they abuse the fact that both crit hit damage bonus and weak point damage bonus are multiplicative modifiers instead of increasing your might, which is only additive. Now, I've done damage testing with this already for my particular build versus other augments, and when I have Sacred Flame on with dual blades with the standard first attack, I did it with the first attack just so I have a consistent number. With this first like two piece right here, I do 472 damage and 1503 damage when I'm not in a rampage, and when I am in a rampage, I do 749 damage and 238 damage, 2388 damage when I am in a rampage. And I'm just kind of swinging just so, you know, you see that those numbers are true. And then I'll go into rampage to show you that those are true. Now, the thing is, like, yeah, I have more might, but I'm going to show you other augments that you can put in these slots that are just way better. And this just doesn't apply for the Hinterclaw Valor Plate. It applies to any Valor Plate that has like a really good spotlight or anchor spot, that I'll call it, for augmenting. Okay, now I'm in rampage, right? And I said 749 and 2,388. Boom, 749, 2,388. So, boom, there you go. So, when it comes to that, when it comes to getting more damage out of your builds, you're primarily want to focus on crit hit damage bonus, weak point damage bonus, and the last thing you really want to focus on for most weapons, right? Because dual blades is a special case. Dual blades you can also invest into if you're dual blades primarily. This is like a note just for dual blades players. Weak point damage, critical hit damage, and then weapon tech damage, because inner focus, which is your weapon technique, also is a multiplicative modifier, and that can scale off of you just increasing your weak point, your weapon technique damage. But another modifier that everyone can scale off of that's also multiplicative is rampage. If you invest in the rampage tree, which that I suggest everyone do, and max that tree out, I feel like it's a mandatory tree just because it's free damage just for something you're going to do anyways, which is fight enemies. Rampage damage is multiplicative. And now, when you see the build, we actually drop down in might to 3,443, pretty much a 200 drop in might. But you'll see that my number is different. When I did testing for this, when I'm not in rampage, I do 459 damage and 1,463 damage, which is actually less than the Sacred Flame augment, right? But only by a small margin, right? However, when I get into rampage, which we'll see soon, hold on, let me build rampage up. Let me body some of these enemies, right? So right now, since I'm not in rampage yet, Sacred Flame's out damaging this, right? But when I hit rampage, I vastly outscale here to the point where I do 1,151 on a non-crit, and if I can get a crit, boom. I don't think that doesn't count because that had shock applied, and that's because I did that much damage. Come on, can you give me a hit without shock. Just give me a crit without shock. There it is, 3,669. That's the damage that I do on a non-crit if the enemy doesn't have an ailment on it. Obviously, if the ailment is on there, then that's also another thing. But even still, with the ailment on, whether it was for Sacred Flame or whether it was for things like Foreboding Reach, I would still out damage, just because again, increasing rampage damage bonus is multiplicative. Sacred Flame would be okay in a support spot, like where I have my Carnage is. My Carnage is technically supporting my Foreboding Reach because I'm getting more scaling for putting Carnage in this slot than putting like Carnage right here. I'm just getting more mileage out of it, right? Because this is being buffed by two legendary might augments, while if I put Carnage in this middle spot, it would only be getting buffed by a legendary augment and an epic augment, which just doesn't scale as much as just having two legendary augments buffing one. Well, two legendary might augments at that, buffing another augment that scales off of might. And that's just also another thing to keep in mind when building. And this goes for any. You can apply this to any Valor Plate, not just Hinterclaw, because like the spotlight spot is where I have my Foreboding Reach. The support spots are the two red spots behind it, and the blue and green spot that are on the sides of it, because all of those are adjacent augments pointing to the spotlight spot here. So that's why my Foreboding Reach is right here. And you can do this with pretty much any Valor Plate. All these Valor Plates pretty much follow the same rule, but that's why I can't stress enough that Sacred Flame is a trap augment. If you want to maximize the damage in your builds, please stop using Sacred Flame. There are so many better augments. Like Sacred Flame should be like a last option type of augment, and even then I can't even suggest it then, because you could just put a bunch of you can just put a bunch of rare augments and still get more damage. Frostfire, which is a rare might augment, gives you 32 or 33% damage in Rampage. Well, it gives you 32 or 33% critical hit damage during Rampage, which that would even outscale with only a 30% modifier. Basically still would outscale Sacred Flame once you hit Rampage. And while you can argue like, oh well, what about the time you're not in Rampage? The time that you're not in Rampage is only additive. Like I said, without Rampage, I was with Sacred Flame on, and during Rampage I was doing 472 on a non-crit. And when I had Foreboding Reach, which I have now on my build, I was doing 459. That's not even 20% damage difference. However, and crit was 1503 versus 1463 for non-Rampage. But however, once I got into Rampage, it's completely different. It's 749 versus 1151 when I have Foreboding Reach on. And that's not even close. And crits are even more scaled farly apart. I tried to say like farly and apart at the same time, and it just came out terrible. Anyway, we keeping it in there, bro. We only doing one take, so fuck it. So when I have Rampage on, I'm doing 2,388 on a crit versus 3,669 on a crit. That's over 1,000 damage that I'm missing out on a crit for just having Sacred Flame on instead of giving my build a modifier that's multiplicative. So And so this is just something that I want y'all to keep in mind, that when y'all are building, like, keep in mind your multiplicative damage modifiers first, because when you're adding in all these augments, you're going to be getting more might anyway. If I had more red slots, like let's say some of these blues up here were reds, I would be getting more might just by putting rares up here, right? So, and low key, yeah, if any developers are watching this, you know, buff my man Hinterclaw, bro. He don't need these blue spots, bro. Just make these red. He's a crit damage, crit hit chance like Valor plate. Why does he have fucking blue augments here? Man, get these shits out of here and put some red augments here, or at least give me one other red augment, and you got one blue spot. Like make this spot right here red, and then just have one blue, bro. Let him have 4 red slots and just the one blue. He don't need 2 blues. I get it. I get the design that I was going for. 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 greens, and a white spot. Oh, man, you don't need this. Like, make this either a white spot or a red spot. You don't need this. But anyway, that would be do it for the video. Things that I just want y'all to keep in mind when augmenting. I want y'all to keep in mind spotlight spots that are being pointed at by multiple different augments, and the support augment spots around it, and how those synergize with your build. I also want you, again, keep in mind your multiplicative modifiers first before you really worry about increasing your might. Worry about things like your critical hit damage, your weak point damage, and your rampage bonus damage before you worry about any damage coming from just pure might. Also, again, dual blades, y'all keep in mind y'all weapon technique damage, because inner focus is a multiplicative modifier. So if you're buffing your weapon technique damage, that's you buffing a multiplicative modifier. Boom. But that would do it for the video. That'll be it. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Again, if you like the content here, just like and subscribe. And also, if follow me on Twitch and Twitter, which those links will be again down in this description below. Deuces.